Hey, everybody. Welcome to our podcast today. My name is Stu Wolf, and I work for Threat IQ. We are an IT security and OT security, industrial cybersecurity company covering North America, South America, as well as expanding into Europe and beyond. We're specialists within the security space, and myself personally, I'm an executive director with Threat IQ. Been involved in this industry for well over 20 years, and industrial cybersecurity specifically for over 10. Today on the call, actually, we have a really interesting speaker. His name is Jonathan Mortley. He works for Threat IQ and he covers both North and South America. It focused on the industrial cybersecurity space. And I thought he'd be a really great addition to our podcast series called Cyber Chat IQ. Hey, Jonathan, if you want to introduce yourself and welcome to our podcast.
Thanks, Stu. Yeah, Jonathan Mortley here for Threat IQ. I'm currently a senior cybersecurity specialist working in OT, industrial control systems, and the IIoT, which is the Industrial Internet of Things. I've been working here with Threat IQ for the past 3 years. I have about 8 years of experience within the organization, within the field of operational technology, cybersecurity, starting my work back in 2015, 2016, back in the oil fields in Alberta, and moving back to Ontario, working with, local critical infrastructure here, local power generation, engine, and energy, as well as working with some of the folks out in the States when it comes to NERCSIP and the other and critical infrastructure that they have in the US. So I have a pretty good background when it comes to operational technology, cybersecurity. I've also done a little bit of IT work as well in my earlier days, pivoting more towards working with OT after a year or two of that IT work. Now I head up the North American and South American practice for Threat IQ when it comes to operational technology and lead the delivery of our assessment services and engineering and system design services for Threat IQ.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad to have you on our Cyber Chat IQ podcast. Um, You just recently wrote a white paper, and we presented it as well at the Messe conference in Germany. And I just want to sort of focus on that for our podcast today. The title was From Missteps to Mastery: Lessons Learned from OT Passive Monitoring Projects. So, kind of a big long sentence, but the focus really is around, how do you do passive monitoring successfully within industrial cybersecurity environments? And passive meaning that you're not directly scanning equipment and causing outages. The whole idea is to find the vulnerabilities and not cause outages. We're trying to maintain uptime and safety within these manufacturing environments. And so, the interesting piece is when we're collecting the network activity and asset behavior and potential threats, there's also a lot of challenges when we're trying to do the passive monitoring as well. Could be technical missteps, could be issues between IT and OT and the organizational disconnects because IT quite often has a different viewpoint than OT does when it comes to information security and specific requirements where OT is more focused on uptime and availability and safety, and the IT world are focused on threats and confidentiality. So they have a bit of a different sort of view, but they're really, need to work together to try to be able to monitor these environments, ensure safety, availability, and be able to catch those cyber threats. So I was wondering if you could tell me, from a CEO perspective or even a CISO perspective on the IT side of the house, that you need to have some sort of governance between IT and OT, and that divide can derail your overall rollout of your technology that you're trying to put in to be able to passively monitor those OT environments. Can you tell me, sort of what would be the really good thing that you can do from an overall governance perspective that a CEO can really, or a CISO can really enable to help move these projects forward successfully?
Right. So I like that you started there at the C-suite executive level because it really starts there with collaboration. What I've seen work in the past is having a collaboration cross-functional team at the C-suite at the executive level. That means that the CISO is a co-chair, and he works with his counterpart in operations, usually the CEO, the COO, and or if they don't have a CEO, maybe a VP of operations, and they work together to bring together a cross-functional team for OT cybersecurity, right? And usually it's a steering committee that is chaired or headed by the COO, and then is also then collaborative with the CISO, CISO being a co-chair. That forces both sides to have equal voices rather than IT owning an OT project within the operations group. It's IT and OT coming together to then share in understanding what the KPIs are, understanding what the impact of this project is, right? Then we have middle management that comes into place, that is then elected by the COO or the CISO to work with the operations teams at the lower levels, like your tech guys, the guys that are doing your hands-on work, especially on the IT engineering side, the cybersecurity engineering side, the people who are actually deploying the systems within the OT environment. They're the ones who are understanding what the KPIs are and working together to come together to deliver this product to provide to provide this data that they need, right? Whether it's security monitoring for this instance related to like an OT cybersecurity monitoring platform like Nozomi, Clarity, any of those passive monitoring platforms. You put those in the environment without having IT speak to OT. Become a hindrance to the operations team. Whereas when you put together a collaborative effort, it becomes now a benefit for both sides. It may have a benefit for operations to get better visibility on their assets that they don't have visibility on. They get a better understanding of end of legacy systems as well, right? And they get a better they get to identify KPIs that are more related to what IT can relate to as well. So that becomes a more collaborative effort. And last but not least, you bring in the IT team is not overpowering or overbearing on the OT team, meaning that this is not, as I said, an IT coming in and doing things on OT. You have now this communication, right? Where when you put in a change, right, to the organization or to this operations team, they're both sides have to come together and agree to the changes. So you have open communication now. Whereas before, in my experience, when I walk into an organization, it's like, okay, OT had bad, operations team had bad taste in their mouth from the IT team because the IT team would start doing things, making changes at the network level, causing problems for OT, whether it be a loss of visibility on the OT side. They can't see one of their PLCs or something is wonky on the network, or they're seeing a loss of the packets, right? They're getting stuff getting dropped from the historian, from the PLC to the historian. They're wondering what's happening here. Why are we not getting the data we need, right? So changes that the IT makes on the OT side can affect operations and can affect their bottom line, right? So IT definitely needs to communicate with OT about what they're doing, and vice versa. Once you have these type of platforms in place, like your cybersecurity operational technology cybersecurity platforms for monitoring, you need to have that open communication about what changes are going on within the network, and operations needs to have a way to communicate that to IT, because IT is the one who is monitoring these systems usually. So having that open line of communication, telling them when the change windows are, when you'll be doing an upload or a download to the PLC from the engineering workstation, when you'll be doing downtime, turnover, these things are important for IT to understand so they can adjust their false positives, so they can minimize the amount of false positives that they're getting at the operational technology cybersecurity platform tool that they've employed. So when it comes to the IT/OT disconnect, there's many ways to have that collaboration, but it all starts at the top. The CISO and the CEO, the COO, or the VP of operations needs to be hand in hand and show a united front so that middle management and the people down at the operations floor and in IT can work together collaboratively.
Yeah, I can definitely see that, like one of the biggest challenges I've seen in OT and IT is just trying to do that sort of marriage counseling of getting the two teams to actually communicate, OT to understand why IT wants them to protect themselves, that we're there to ensure their uptime and their availability. We're not there to hurt their operations. And that downtime impact of a cyber attack on the OT operations can cost a huge amount of money to the business as well. And so, it's a matter of getting them in the same room and helping them to sort of understand that and showing them that, in our title of our topic today, that you can do passive monitoring, be able to collect the information that you still need without impacting any of the operations in their environment, sort of a low touch type of exercise, right? I guess, like part of the challenge when we're deploying this stuff, it can be around lack of comprehensive knowledge of the actual industrial security architecture itself, segmentation, how you segment within OT, how you segment between OT and IT, how the communication flows work between, a historian and a PLC and a IT device that's collecting all the data on the IT side from OT to be able to do additional analytics, what the actual behaviors, specific behaviors of these devices are, because they don't necessarily, communicate with the same kind of protocols that we would expect in an IT environment, right? And so the challenge is you can't actually passively collect the data, but you may not be collecting the right amount of data or have the right visibility because you're not placing the sensors in the right location. So you need to understand all of that. So I guess the question is, let's see that, assume that we're able to place our specific devices to collect the information, the threat information passively and understand the assets, the data that's out there. In order to be able to actually track, things like the discovery of the assets, the completeness, how many protocols we're actually covering of specific types of equipment. How would you actually translate that for a C-level executive to show, kind of clear ROI that we're actually, collecting the actual right amount of information successfully, that the investment we made to go out and do that is actually working properly, and we can show that to executives?
Yeah, so that's a difficult thing to do. It can be done, and you also have to have a CEO that is, or an executive team that is aware of risk and how to do risk management and has really good effort in putting effort into enterprise risk management. Right now, what I've seen is a way to do that is to present the the ROI, as a risk-adjusted OpEx saving, right? So you have your labors. If you can minimize the amount of labor, if you can minimize the amount of fines that you face, and the amount of costs incurred from a cyber incident, right? Plus, you avoid production loss. If you can show that you can avoid production loss through what I was referring to before, having end of life devices, having things that are unsafe within the environment, well, going more towards your traditional process control automation shop, and the risks that they have within that specific engineering group, not just cyber risk, but risk from outages, right? Loss of visibility, loss of control, these things that can be caused from system failures that are normal within OT themselves, right? Because these systems run for a long time, 20, 30 years. When you can show that you can minimize the amount of production loss or avoid production loss, then that automatically allows the executives to grasp it. It's kind of an immediate thing they grasp. And how you do that is you go back to your three KPIs that you were referring to. I actually have those in my white paper. So the asset discovery ratio, which is the percentage of live assets detected, right? What that means from a business perspective is how blind are we, right? Do we know what we have out there? And if we don't know what we have out there, then how can we maintain it, right? Not just from a cybersecurity perspective of looking at how can we protect it, but these guys need to know what systems are running to understand what systems are critical, so they can then lessen the amount of downtime they have, right? If they want to do a whole retrofit of a new line, then they need to understand what's on that line and how to minimize the amount of downtime from that line, right? So they can have an average, they can lower the average amount of unplanned downtime that they have. Usually they have a figure that is calculated at the beginning of the year, how much unplanned downtime they have. And MESs, especially in manufacturing, can monitor that for them. So you can minimize the amount of unplanned downtime, which then automatically is understood by the COO as understanding, hey, my production is suffering because of this. Right? Going into the asset completeness ratio, that's a percentage of assets that we know from a make and model perspective, right? So if we're a completely Rockwell shop, right? Or we're a complete Schneider shop, or we're a complete Beckhoff PLC shop, for instance, right? Then we can get our understanding and work out how many man hours, right? And avoid emergency call outs and lower the amount of labor it takes to maintain those systems, right? Because we can understand what systems again are end of life, what systems have vulnerabilities on them, right? What systems can be easily patched. You can even work out. You can also work out. If you're strictly a Rockwell shop list instance, it's very rare that you find homogeneous systems. You walk into a plant floor and they've got 20, 30 different vendors in there. So that's why it's better to understand what vendors you have in the environment so that you can have them create services packages for you, right? So again, it gives you that visibility from an operational standpoint, not from just a cyber standpoint. So how fast we can patch, how fast we can, especially when it comes to like capex, the capex, the excuse me, the GCX, those are becoming new standards and regulations that you have to abide with from a manufacturing standpoint, from a good manufacturing practice standpoint, GMP. So again, you can get a better visibility of what you need to implement, what you need to fix or change to become compliant within those new regulations.
Right.
And then the third ratio, the third KPI that we look at is the protocol coverage ratio. So that's the percentage of assets whose native protocols can be identified with the tool that we've deployed. So looking at this from a business lens perspective is that this is more of being on the cyber side, right? Minimizing cyber threats, minimizing the likelihood and the impact of downtime from a cyber event. So that protocol doesn't really have as much of a business impact, whereas the other two, asset complete list and asset discovery, those have more of a business use case. But again, once you present the ROI and break it down as a risk adjusted OpEx savings, that lowers the labor, lowers the amount of fines that you face, lowers the amount of cybersecurity incident costs, and also operational incident costs, safety related incident costs, plus avoided unproduction loss, then executives tend to grasp this immediately.
And let's say that, we now have a green light and we've gone ahead and we're deploying our passive monitoring. What are the three actions that should happen following, your initial deployment this quarter? It's just in subsequent quarters to actually keep the project on track.
Yeah, so what that looks like is within those first 90 days, right? You want to get a good visibility of what is going on in the environment, right? You have these things turned on in training mode for the first 2 weeks, but that's not really enough time to get a good baseline to your organization. So you want to kind of have that built out for 90 days. You not meaning that you don't switch it into live mode instead of training mode, but you keep a foundation. You monitor the baseline yourself for those 90 days. You do other offline, excuse me, not offline, but off platform services. You keep a dialogue of your network, right? Your physical surveys. You continue to do packet capture validation. You continue to tweak and understand the sensor placements, right? Just to make sure that you're getting that guaranteed north, south, east, west traffic that you're looking for. From a second point of view, playbooks. Playbooks between IT and OT are going to be very important from this standpoint, right? You need to, as I said, document that change control workflow, work on incident triage from a playbooks perspective, right? And then you also need to have an understanding of your KPIs, right? So that initial switch from training to live mode is going to be your KPI baseline, but you need to understand what your target KPIs are, right? Because you should have tested this before, but you won't really know until you go into prod or live production until you have those actual KPIs, and they'll keep changing once the system is running from training to live mode, right? And then you have to do continuous tuning. Tuning is always going to be necessary. You can't just set it and forget it when it comes to these OT cybersecurity platforms. You need to continuously be updating it, having it understand what is a change that you've maybe haven't made in the last 3 years, right? Depending on turnover. If you're implementing new systems, new protocols in the environment, you're uploading you're connecting into the cloud. There's many things that can happen within an OT life cycle. Life cycle of operations are usually 20 years for a plant, right? So those systems will be sitting there for a long time, and you need to every quarter you need to really keep updated with that. But yeah, from a first quarter, 90 days, you want to tune it, get the tuning in, and then do iterative processes throughout that.
That's awesome. Thanks. Really great insight, Jonathan. Maybe one last question for you. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, really big buzzwords out there, but we're seeing a lot of that now too, of course, on the industrial side as well.
Mm.
And with, AI used for analytics and of course zero trust as well. What should the early adopters that are looking at AI and, even zero trust, what are the sort of the quickest wins that they can look at in, say, the next 18 months? And what are the common traps that they should also avoid as well too for leaders?
Yeah, so let's stay out of the AI talk for now. But what I really understand from a zero trust perspective is that's where your low hanging fruit is. Microsegmentation between internal OT systems is what's going to cause is what's going to give you the best bang for your buck and be the quickest win. That microsegmentation will allow you to segment off your most critical systems from your most low impact systems, right? For instance, your SIS system should not be sitting on the same it's on the same network that you have a printer, or on the same network that you have a historian. SIS systems, a Triconics needs to be on its own separate VLAN, maybe even air gapped as well, depending on what standard you're following. So what I really see is zero trust. That micro segmentation is going to be the biggest bang for your buck and your quickest win from a plat perspective. Um, if you can do it within existing VLANs, that's great. If you have to do a whole re-architecture of your network, then it might take you a little longer. There also are, software-defined networks that you can deploy, solutions that you can deploy to help you do that software-defined microsegmentation, not actual physical segmentation. So those systems are being implemented for clients that we've seen work in environments like that before.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks so much for your time today, Jonathan. It was great talking to you and great insights on the whole world of passive monitoring and how, executives can definitely benefit from that and work more closely with the OT side and move projects forward so we can identify the cyber risks and catch the bad guys within our environments, ensure availability and safety, of course. So, our contact information is below, and be sure to hit the like button. And thank you so much for joining our Threat IQ podcast today. And we're looking forward to seeing you on our next session. Thank you.
Thanks, Stu.